This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Dr. Len Lopez for the first time. Welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we love to talk to people from around the world. And today we're going to talk about 5 steps to feed a body, mind, and spirit. We're going to get into that. We also are going to, tell your story. But before we get to that, we let people know about Podmatch is the tool that we use to match guest and host. That's how we're here today. People can scan the QR code on there now. They can learn more about Podmatch. You can check that out. It would just go right there if you scan your phone. Now that we've put that out of the way, we're going to actually end up changing the QR code to your QR code,
Oh,
which is the one that actually goes to your website, which is like the HTTPS // 5stepsaday.com. And so if people scan that now, then they'll be able to learn more about what we're going to talk about if you want to follow while we're talking. So before we get to the heart of your story, I always ask every guest a couple things. I ask them, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
God, what motivates me? That's really good because for so many people, it's purpose. You got to have purpose every morning you wake up. What is it? Why am I trying to get to where I want to go? You know, we always talk about the proverbial land of milk and honey. Do you know where your proverbial land of milk and honey is? And right now, I'm the older dad with younger kids, and so I have kids that are coming, getting ready to get out of high school and everything, trying to prepare them to be good, strong, respectable men and women in the years ahead.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really important to kind of, pay it forward, whether you're teaching your own kids or you're writing about something and you're trying to take your knowledge or your lessons learned in your life and telling people like, hey, like this is what I've learned and this is how we can benefit all together. And so I think that's cool that you're actually coming together like what we were talking about before. You came up with this whole idea, these 5 steps a day to feed the body, mind, and spirit. And I'm going to kind of ask, like, how did you come up about that? Was that just over time you found something, you found this works?
Well, for those who don't know, for about the last 25, 30 years, I've spent most of my life trying to help people eat right and train smart. My background is in health and fitness, nutrition, strength conditioning coach, chiropractic sports physician. And so people would come into me, they're trying to get better, physically fit. They're trying to get their health back in order and everything. And the funny enough thing, when you talk with them in your office after like the second and third visit, they just start sharing more about what's going on in their life. And
Mm-hmm.
as you hear stuff, as I would hear stuff, just some of the stuff they would share wasn't really health and fitness related, but just some of their life experiences that they're dealing with, the other headaches in life that we all have. We always have it just raining on us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's how you deal with it. And part of me wanted to interject more into helping them with their those mental muscles, their spiritual muscles. But I know they were over here paying me for my knowledge in health and fitness, so I kind of
Yeah.
stayed in my lane. But I just kept on seeing it, and after a while, I had created 5 steps a day, honestly, about 25 years ago, but it wasn't until about a little over a couple, almost 2 years ago, I was being interviewed for a magazine, and they were asking me about health and fitness. Did the interview, and they came back about a year later. They said, "Doc, we really loved the article we did with you last time on health and fitness. We want to do another article, but we want to kind of go along that whole body, mind, spirit thing. I
Mm.
don't know if that's is that okay? Are you groovy or not?" And there, so I kind of thought about it. The next morning, I sent them 5 steps a day, something I created before. I used to call it something different. I used to call
Mm-hmm.
it action steps because the word steps is just an acronym for sleep, think, eat, physical, and spirit. And I'll share more about that here shortly. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
a simple way. It's an accountability journal that in less than a minute, 2 minutes, you can track how well you're feeding body, how well you're feeding your mind, how well you're feeding your spirit.
I think it's just super important, because a lot of times, like I give it the kind of disclosure, like I wear a lot of hats, and one of the things I do software design, and we spend a lot of time with acronyms like your step and trying to come up with like cheat sheets of like
Right.
very complex things like we are the algorithms and the complex things we do, we try to break down to like acronyms or processes or procedures, and anybody is a project manager,
Right.
they know there's all these acronyms for whatever you do.
Right. Right.
And you're, a doctor, as well. So you're trying to get people to have something that's digestible and sustainable, so that, like, a lot of times people, they get into things, it's like a fad diet.
Right.
They do it, but it's not something they're going to do for the next 20 years. They might do for the next 30 days, and then they're like, oh, it didn't work.
Right. And so to go, the letter E means eat. In the word steps, the letter E stands for eat. I'm asking you, did you eat right today? I'm not asking if you ate perfect, if it was all organic, grass fed, anything like that, because I know we're all coming from different starting points. For some people, just only holding yourself to one serving, or nothing, not having dessert with that meal. Everybody has different starting points. And what I've noticed over the years when I was in private practice, that some people would, they'll start a diet and they get pretty good with it for the first 2 days, 5 days, 7 days, and then they end up, going out and have dinner with a friend, and they ended up eating all the wrong stuff and drinking all the wrong things. It just, I blew my diet. And then they fall off the wagon.
Yeah,
They
just
stay
drop
off the wagon. And they don't realize, hey guys, typically most of my patients and most people have about 3 meals a day. I'm simply asking, or one way if you want to look at it is, did you have more good meals than bad meals today?
Yeah.
Maybe you had a good breakfast, maybe you had a good lunch, but then you went out with your friends that night and you had a not so healthy dinner. I mean, being a sports guy, it's like baseball: 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. It still has me moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
So
you don't have to give up the whole ship. I mean, that's the whole idea. I was a musician too. We run into this idea called a perfection trap.
Yeah.
And the perfection trap is like, you're sitting there, you're doing 100 takes, you're taking like 8 hours in the studio, and it's like diminishing returns. Like after take like 10,
Right.
you're like diminishing returns, and maybe you should walk away. Maybe you should stop, right? Because a lot of times what ends up happening, you end up wrecking the song.
Right.
Because it's like, you need to kind of know that you don't have to be perfect. And a lot of times in the arts, it's like the happy accident is actually what you want, right? And so you have to be very discerning in terms of, like, you had this idea, you had this big idea, and then you hit this other key. And this other key actually opened up a whole new opportunity, and you just like, oh, I've just wrecked the whole thing. I'm done. If you throw the thing down, you walk out. You got to give yourself some grace.
Well, to what you were just saying, that's kind of how I finally brought steps out, because as I said, I had created this thing about 25 years ago, but I was just, busy in practice, and, I invented a fitness product, wrote a few books, did a lot of writing, and did a lot of television shows talking about health and wellness. And then I realized, I came up with it, but it was all in the back burner. But after that writer from the magazine contacted me, I shared with him. He dug it. Their editor came back, called me, and said, "This is the coolest thing. We've never seen a accountability journal, a to-do list. I call it a glorified to-do list that is so simple, because what's unique about it is that you're just shading in the steps. And a lot of people don't learn just by listening and reading. Some people, especially artists, are more visual. And so when they can see, hey, I shaded in 3 footsteps today. I shaded in 4 steps today. I shaded in all 5. And you get a glimpse on your phone. You can see, hey, of the 35 steps in a week, I took 28 steps. That's, pat on the back, make yourself feel accomplished. But by the same token, you can flip through another week. You might see, hey, I only took 7 steps this week. I'm falling off the wagon a bit. I need to get back to where I want to be, because I know I was. And so it's just a simple way to track how you're doing, how you're feeding body, mind, and spirit.
I think a lot of times it's like, if you keep it simple, there's a lot of things, even the design ethic, because we can get very complex. And I think some people think like, oh, the complexity makes it better. And then it's always like, engineering is like, the simplest design is better, because it's like, it's better on fit tolerance and failure. Like if I build something so complex, the failure points are all over the place. Like, if I can try to minimize it to something that's like, this is a more solid design, because it doesn't have like 20 failure points.
Well, to what you were saying, when I first had the idea, I really got 5 steps from it because I used to always journal and I used to track everything on a calendar, just your basic wall calendar. And by the end of the week, end of the month, I could look to see, hey, this is again back when I was in my 20s and 30s. You know, did I stretch today? Did I work out today? Did I eat good today? Did I practice my dancing? Did I spend time reading as I wanted to learn more? And I could see how many little check marks I had on my calendar. So that's kind of how I created it. And but after Authority Magazine, you know, kind of got my idea, I came back and so I wrote some stuff down, shared it with some, you know, like we all have our little tight circle of friends. I shared it with them, and their reaction was very positive. They said, "Len, this is really cool." They told me two things. Len, yeah, a calendar is great and a journal's great. And what you created, he goes, but this needs to be an app. This needs to be an
Yeah.
app because it's so visual. And I need my kids to read this. And so it just kind of got me thinking more and more. So it's been an evolution. As I said, I'm a much better doctor and speaker than I am a tech person
Take
or
that person. So
the
yeah,
guy
getting
behind
it
the
to the app
scenes.
is like you needed some people to get it from paper to an app, you
Yep,
know.
yep, that's exactly it.
Yeah, that's kind of my job. That's like what I do. Is like I'm an analyst and I look at business people and we take what's in their head, you know, take it from the C-suite and then put it into the street. But the idea. It's interesting. Like 5 steps, and then visually, you know, everybody learns a lot better visually.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's what you know. And you know, to be honest, and I didn't steal it for Jerry Seinfeld, but I know Jerry Seinfeld. For the, I'm sure there's a lot of Seinfeld fans out there. I remember what he said years ago. He was saying he in an interview that somebody asked him, you know, what do you owe your success to? He said that when he was a young comedian growing in the business, he goes, if I wanted to be good, I'm going to need to write you know, whatever kind of industry you're in. But for him, he said, I need to write 10 jokes a day. That was for him. That was what he felt like he needed to do. Like if you're exercising, I need to do 50 push-ups a day, whatever it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
And so he took a wall calendar, and every time that he did 10 jokes a day, he would make a big X on that day. And
yeah.
then the
So
next day,
practice.
if he did it again, he would make an X and then another X. And if he missed, he'd leave it blank. And he started realizing that when he looked at that calendar, he could see all the red X's, and he didn't want to see the blank spaces. And so
Hmm.
it further motivated him. And as I created 5 steps, and I was telling them about the idea of 5 steps, and friends of mine, they go, "Oh, Len, that's right." Because you know, when you look at that, just getting, you know, reading something may stimulate some people, but we all don't learn by just reading. But when you sit here and jog in and feel that thing, you get that visual, you get that little biochemical dopamine hit that further accents. You know, it's one of those Pavlov dog things that further accents your, hey, I'm doing something and I'm doing something right. And so that's kind of one of the ways that, you know, how I evolve with 5 steps a day.
I think it's real important 'cause if you think about like musicians and athletes, we have something in common. We would do rehearsals, we do reps, right? And the reason is because you got to stay in form.
Right.
And yeah, in order to stay in form, it's like you've got to put your 10,000 hours in, your 20,000 hours. You got to get your mastery. So once you have your mastery down, then you've got to have, you know, be sustainable, which is another thing. It's like musicians, we can do something that could be stupid. It's like we can get our mastery down, but then we might over rehearse
Right.
and then mess up the gig. Because like if you over practice, then you actually mess up your hands and then you actually mess up the gig. So you
I,
kind of have to have a certain level of grace to don't know what's the happy medium. Like you don't want to not have that blank day, but you don't want to overdo it. So then when it comes to the day, then you can't do it.
yeah, it's that point of diminishing returns, and I think that happens for everything, but for athletes and for artists, I think it's much more definitive as opposed to just, you know, if you're an accountant, it just may be hard to see where you've reached your point. But I think everybody has that point of diminishing returns out there.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing is like there's a lot of parallels. Like people will say, "Well, I'm not creative." Like every person is creative. How you tell your story every day, how you present yourself every day. Everybody uses their creativity, and so a lot of people like, oh, they say they can't, you know, they're not good at this, they're not good at that. but it really is like you have to find like what are the things that you are good at, and then really, fine tune like you're saying. Like if you start asking yourself the questions, like if you're not feeling right, and it's like, and some people, I had this one person that was like a not a therapist, but it was a trainer.
Right.
He had the six pack abs, he had everything, but then he's like he wasn't feeling good in his soul, his spirit. He was depressed.
Right.
And so he looked in the mirror and he's like, "Well, I look good, but there's like these other pillars. Like you have to have your spirit, you have to have your sleep, you have to have other things." And
Right.
like you're saying, it's like, and sometimes a lot of times we just focus on one thing or maybe
Yeah.
two things, and we don't realize all the other things.
I like to use the analogy of like the three-legged stool. It doesn't matter how the legs don't need to be exactly perfect like a four-legged chair. We've all had that wobbly chair or that the table at the restaurant because it's four legs. You can't get them all harder to get them perfect. But with
Yeah,
the three-legged stool, they can be off a little bit, but they're still going to be pretty solid on the ground. And I think because we are body, mind, and spirit, some people just get too pulled into one direction versus and don't get that balance out there. Like to what you were saying, some people that are very fit, they may, and I'm not painting the picture, I'm not trying to describe, but there's some people that are just so body oriented that they neglect their mind and spirit. And by the same token, there's people that are so spiritually driven, they
like
neglect their
karate.
own body and
Yeah,
their own and some of the mental aspects. And so it's about getting all three of those legs, and close to balance and everything. And when you do that, I think there's more overall joy, happiness, contentment within.
yeah. Because so maybe we start with like sleep, because a lot of times in our world, people are so, like in the IT world, we've got this new thing where people are doing like 120, 160, right? They in startups, people expect people to go that many hours for the company. And when you're doing something like that, like you start ignoring your sleep.
Right.
And if you don't have good recovery, you get the diminished returns. You get into that jazz session, you get into that meeting, and it's like, yeah, you're getting 7 days a week, and like you're losing it.
Well, yeah. Now that's a. Let me clarify what the word sleep is. The way I define it for 5 steps, because most people when they first see it, they think, did I get a good night's sleep? Did I get enough sleep? Did I wake up in the middle of the night, couldn't go back to sleep? What I'm asking you on 5 steps a day, okay, it's like, did you sleep with a smile? Did you go to bed with the remote control or your phone in your hand and you just waited till you nodded off? Or did you fall asleep with a smile on your face because you're dreaming and visualizing about whatever goal you want to see happen in the
Mhm.
next week, next month, next year? Because when you go to sleep with purpose and have a visual image of where you want to go, again, another one of those Pavlov dog thing, you'll start, the smile will start developing on your face. And as you visualize that picture more and more, whether I know we're talking to more artists here, when you
Yeah,
see
yeah.
yourself getting that award, getting that applause, getting that attention, whatever it is, and you can just visualize. I think athletes and entertainers, they have a much better ability of seeing the end point.
Yeah,
For a
yeah.
lot of people
Yeah,
that aren't in
make it
that
happen.
industry,
Actualize. You make it actualize because you're focused, and like you're saying, there's like a directed subconscious. Like you're directing what that subconscious outcome, instead of saying, "Well, that's random. I can't control that." Where if
but you're
it
getting
becomes
those,
more.
you're getting all those fibers in your body because they start seeing, it's the new car you're going to get, the new house, the new promotion, the new corner office. You getting the applause because you won the award in whatever industry. But that's what you're doing, and the more you focus on that, for those 6, 7, 8 hours that you're asleep, your subconscious chews on that. And,
Yeah.
all I'm trying to get you to do is at nighttime before you go to bed, did you sleep with a smile? Did you fall asleep dreaming about your tomorrow? Because,
Like,
as I would like to say, we've all heard about the proverbial land of milk and honey, and wherever that is for whomever, where your land of milk and honey is, don't complain if you don't arrive at your land of milk and honey because you never had your sights set on it. So
yeah.
many people, they complain about it, but it's like, they end up arriving at the land of heartache and headache but they didn't know what their land of milk and honey was. And so, kind of like what Seinfeld was saying, do I know where I want to go? Are you working toward there? Are you letting your subconscious mind for those 8 hours you are asleep? I mean, and just think, if you had like a twin person next to you and they fall asleep with the remote control in your hand, and you fall asleep thinking about the award ceremony, hitting the home run, winning, making the last second shot or whatever, getting the Grammy, getting whatever award it is, don't you think that's going to make some kind of a difference?
Yeah, it's
Whether
like
it's
manifestation. Like it's
yeah,
like Buddhist. I'm Buddhist. I believe in like Eastern kind of philosophy, but this idea of manifestation, like a lot of times when we're meditating or chanting or doing focus, you can do that before you go to sleep. But like when we wake up in the morning and we go into our meditation practices and our chanting, a lot of times we're directing that
no,
toward this manifestation of what we want, and it's always a positive thing. You know, and some people have a hard time with that because, like, if you're a person that's like, well, I'm a doubter, I'm more of a pessimist. Like, well, then, like that pessimist is like, well, it's like you have to be a starving artist. But if you're always saying you got to be a starving artist, then that's where
that's
you're
how
going
you
to be.
start.
That's where you're going to be. Like if you feel that there's nothing wrong with earning money for my art. In
Right,
fact,
right.
that's not a bad thing. But some folks, they kind of put money, you say, well, that's a bad thing. And then they wonder why the money never comes. Because if you're projecting that the money is bad,
Right, right.
then you're
And yeah,
never going to get it.
hearing you talk about that, I mean, it's just like, yeah, I was, I've been meditating for, gosh, more than 50. How old am I now? Middle of my seventh decade. So, back I was a teenager, put it that way. And it was just a way to relax, close my eyes and just calm my body down. But when I would do that sometimes, then I started at nighttime when I'm trying to go to bed. That's when I would dream about what it is I want to see happen. And, half the time it's just within a minute, I'm out because I, sometimes wait so long to go to bed. But other times, I mean, this is why I got the term sleeping with a smile, because I get so focused on it, I can see it. And as you get that picture becomes more vivid in your mind, those little smile muscles just start coming up on here. Your eyes start, and it's just kind of like, wow, I can't believe what's
Yeah.
happening. And so I encourage you guys, if you've never tried, just to visualize yourself, just think of what it is you want to achieve. And I'll say this too, Venom, that most of your artists and athletes, they have a better capability of visualizing stuff because they really know what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
They're
but
trying to hit a home run. They're trying to score the touchdown. They're trying to win that award, have that contract in their hand. And so they can visually see that. It's a little bit more challenging for other people, but there's other ways to find what goals you want to see in life. And that's what Sleeping with a Smile is all about. That first S is, did you do anything that's going to help you for those 8 hours you're sleeping? Or did you sleep for those 8 hours like a bump on the log, just sitting there and that was it? You let your subconscious mind run more towards the negative instead of allowing you to inflow that positive thoughts for yourself.
thank you. I mean, I think that's a good idea. I mean, to visualize what you want instead of thinking about so people are so pessimistic, like the things that are gonna go wrong. People focus on like the bad outcomes instead of, because sometimes I say, well, he's like, I can't think of the good outcomes because that seems like that's too arrogant.
But that's just programming, right? I think that's just programming. And I think of it this way: if you had a twin brother, or twin sister, whoever's listening out here, if you had a twin, and if you went to bed and one of you saw a scary movie, and what do you think is going to happen? What are they going to be thinking about most likely because once your conscious mind goes down, the subconscious mind is always working, right? And like my
Mhm.
wife would always tell me, make sure you use your conscious mind because you sometimes let your subconscious mind get you in trouble when we're in public. But it's like if you fall asleep with worry, fear, and doubt, what are you going to wake up with?
Yeah,
Well,
that's the direction of your whole day. Because a lot
exactly.
of times, like what the artist mind or the athlete that can center themselves is they focus on that motivational goal. Like I'm gonna get that touchdown. I'm gonna get that 3-pointer. I'm gonna I'm gonna just blow away the audience. And then some people are like, well, how can you feel that, right? Because it's like, oh, you're too Like you're too much. He's like you're too much. He's like no. It's like it's not you that they're too much or arrogant. It's like you have to have that face. You have to have
Right,
that. You when we wear kind of a mask or our stage self. You get on that's like if you get on the stage and you don't believe it,
right.
the audience ain't gonna believe it. Like you get on the field and you don't believe it, you're not gonna get it. So
I mean, here what we're talking about. It was so funny because we all know the World Series just ended a couple of weeks ago, right? So I'm really
mhm,
bummed that baseball's over with. But it was great hearing. For those who aren't familiar, it went to Game 7. The Dodgers won in the 11th inning, and it was great because after the game they were interviewing Mookie Wilson, the sports guys on I think it was Fox Sports. They were interviewing him, and I think it was A-Rod asked Mookie. And Mookie Wilson, for those who don't know, he is a big time all-star. I mean, he's one of the rare guys, just to veer off a bit, be a right fielder in Boston as great as he was, and to come over to the Dodgers and now start playing shortstop and being a stud.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
plenty to say that. But he said they asked him, "What were you thinking about in that 11th inning?" And Mookie said, "Come something that I would say." Probably most would say is like, "Don't hit the ball to me. I don't want to hit the ball to me." And they kind of like, what? He goes, no. But then I thought, no, be nasty, be nasty. That was his phrase that he's using for the next step is think. What do you think about during the day, or when you're in that crutch situation, when you go up on stage? Do you think of yourself as the winner? Be the one, the stud out there. So Mookie Betts' thing was, hey, that was his phrase, be nasty. And a lot of us need to have some kind of phrase. I always talk about, do you want to be bigger, better, bolder? Or are
yeah.
you going to let yourself be doomed, dazed, and defeated with your thinking?
I think a lot of times, like people, you go back to school, and the kid that will raise their hand, the kid that will actually go and be in the play,
Right,
the one that wants to be the quarterback, and the other guys, guys that don't. And it's like what gives you the permission structure? Like as an artist, a lot of times it's like what gives you the permission structure to actually paint that painting, to
right.
write that book, to write that song, versus somebody that says, "Well, I'm not good enough." Right? It's like you have to get past that to get anywhere.
No, you have to. And here's what I'll say also, because when I first created 5 Steps a Day, and the thing that was really touching to me was so many of my compatriots, or whatever you want to call friends of mine, who read this for me, who kind of read the little summaries. He said one of their responses was, can I want my kids to read this. And as I said, well, let me write something that's going to be more specific for a teenager as opposed to what
An
you and
adult.
I and my
Yeah.
circle of friends would be thinking about. But as I was thinking about that, as I was trying to write it for their level of understanding of the world, right, was that, hey, I spent my years for the last 25 years, as I said at the beginning, trying to teach people how to navigate that shopping cart through the cookie and chip aisle, right? Well,
Yeah.
it's the same way for the kids. They have to do the same thing, how to navigate, because at an early age, in the second decade of their life, they already have full control of their mental shopping cart.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of kids, they're still young and impressionable, and it's easier, in my opinion, to let those negative, fearful thoughts, overwhelm you, that stifles you and holds you back and everything. And so so again, the think part is just about what do you feed your mind. And for young kids and for adults, we have a tendency, according to research, we spend about 80% of our thoughts are slanted negatively.
Yeah. It's like that's the big issue when I deal with a lot of folks like even when you want to you're working in a whiteboard meeting
Mhm.
and you're trying to get people to say what are the options like and you get the folks that will always tell you,
Right,
and it's like you want somebody to go out on a limb and like I need to know what you're thinking,
right.
and you've got to get more participation, but they still got that thing going on from even when they were in high school or junior high where they're scared what people are going to think. Right?
And
They
so
believe they think, "Oh, the hater's gonna say that, he's terrible, like, I'm gonna lose my job." They start going negative right away.
And to go back to another baseball term, again, research of what I've read over the last several years is that they say that about 80% of our thoughts are slanted negatively. And they guesstimate or estimate that we process about 50,000 thoughts a day. And so, of 80% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. I mean, it's like an 80-20 rule. It's like baseball. 70% of the time you go up to bat, you're not gonna get on base.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if you can make a pretty good living in Major League Baseball if you can hit 300. 30% of the time get a hit.
yeah.
And that's all we're trying to say when it comes to that think step. Did you think better to yourself? Did you tell yourself that you maybe you don't know, as we were talking about earlier, as far as you don't know where you want to go, you don't know what you want to visualize, what success is for you. But that doesn't mean you can't ready the ship. Make yourself more confident, give yourself more courage, just make yourself feel stronger about yourself. And that's what thinking is about. Taking that 1 minute here, 1 minute there throughout the day, every once in a, you don't got to repeat a magic phrase a bazillion times, right? And I think we've
No,
read a lot of those books, 30, 40 years ago, talking about, you got to just drive that phraseology, I'm a winner, I'm the best, I'm the king in your head. The one thing it does, if you can do that for a minute here, a minute here, a minute here, that's one less minute you're beating yourself up and kicking yourself in the
yeah.
rear. And
It
that's
was
what
the more likely that you're going to raise your hand. It's more likely that when the boss asks you, "Do you have anything to say?" that you
right,
actually say it. It is a that's and it's just. I think a lot of times people are so scared about like not hitting it out the park.
right,
But I would argue that like in order to hit it out the park, you actually have to do it, right? If you don't actually go and swing the bat,
right,
it's not going to happen. And a lot of people don't even take the opportunity to swing the bat.
right.
They just like I'd rather like not even pick it up.
And then they wonder, what's the expression, the meek shall inherit the earth. But it's those that really go out there and try to achieve something. We're not talking about running people over or anything, but guys, you have to step up. You have to fill your mind with your thoughts. And I always tell everybody, life has gotten a whole lot more difficult in the last 10 years, especially, right?
Mhm.
Because 30 years ago, we didn't have as much distractions out there.
Yeah, I think that's
Now
a big thing.
we're all walking around with these in our pockets, right? And they're just distracting us. And
No
so
focus.
I always ask my patients, and just when I'm talking to counseling, is when you wake up and your feet hit the ground and you're walking to that restroom, how long does it take you before you remind yourself, I'm going to have a good day. I feel great. I can do it. Whatever phraseology you win, do you wait till after you go to the bathroom, after you get showered, after breakfast, after taking the dogs out, after getting the kids to school, after you get, when do you? And for some people, it's never, right?
Yeah, never
Because
do that.
they're always distracted. Heck, I try to tell my kids, hey, quit tearing that stupid phone into the restroom. You're going to create
Yeah,
all kinds
no,
of
yeah,
other
so
problems
you
for
need to
yourself.
actually not be pinged by your smartphone or your smartwatch. You kind of like the Victorians had this idea of the looking glass self, right? So you look into yourself and you challenge yourself and say, why am I doing this?
Right,
What do I want? And you actually start to have a conversation with yourself instead of always waiting for the external input, like you're saying. And the problem with these phones and these devices, you never ask yourself that because you're looking at the thing you're getting pinged on.
right. It's a
And that thing you're
distraction.
getting pinged on, it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, back in the old day, I always say, I think a lot of the headaches that we deal with today, and I joke, when I talk, it's because of the advent of the light bulb. Prior to the light bulb, when the sun went down, everybody quieted themselves down. They hunkered down. You can only do so many things. The way the body is rhythmically designed,
Yeah, they go
all
rest,
those stress hormones start coming down
take
and
it
everything.
down, they get kind of recovery time.
Yeah, but now ever since the light bulb and then the computers and the cell phones, people are up at midnight. They're still trying to get work
They're
done.
at
They're
2 in
looking
the
up the
morning,
video.
like with the phone on their bed, responding to text,
Right,
instead of having that smile before you dream, your
right.
boss is pinging you and telling you, "Where's this?" So what's
And
gonna happen to your sense of peace.
Right. And even if
Kids,
it's not, even if it's not to your point, if it's not your boss, is it just you because you two want to look at another cat video, right?
oh yeah,
What is it that keeps distracting you? Because sometimes people are just too afraid for that quiet internal visit. But
yeah,
you
fill
have
up
to
the
spend some
space.
time with yourself and
Well, you're
understand
filling
what
up
it is.
this space with a lot of garbage time. It's not really time that's like soulful, useful time. Like if you're filling up what's going on with kind of meaningless things, right? Just because it keeps you from having to look at the looking glass self.
Right.
It keeps you from asking the hard question about why am I in a bad loop? Why
Right.
am I always doing this? Like instead of that, it's like, well, look at this cat video or
And,
watch this TikTok. I want to do this and do that, and like you don't get to the root cause.
and that's kind of what 5 steps is all about, trying to improve your habits and attitude. And I'm a big believer our habits and our attitude are like it's like our DNA, it's our genetic code. You trace back your genetic code, you can trace where you came from, right? Well,
Hmm.
if you trace back your habits and attitude, you may find that, hey, when those achievements and accomplishments occurred, you can look back and say, hey, I was doing a lot of the things I needed to be doing to get where I got. But by the same token, if you look back on some of your habits and attitude when you've had those challenges and those difficulties in your life, you may notice that your habits and attitude weren't what they needed to be. And so all we're trying to do with 5 steps, guys, is just trying to help you improve your habits and attitude by tracking how you feed body, mind, and spirit. And in less than 2 minutes, you can track how well you're doing that.
Yeah, because I mean, and then you kind of briefly were talking about like eating well at the beginning, and the 'cause a lot of people they live in food deserts or they live in a time restricted desert, right? So the time it takes you, like you don't feel you have time to actually eat right, so you eat the junk food because like you've got to get there, right? You've got to jump on the train, you got to jump into the Uber, you got to jump on the plane. So then you don't have the time to eat the slow cooked healthy meal that you got the organic stuff and you made it yourself. So
Hey,
you're getting all this outside stuff and you're not, or you're getting the quick fix, quick thing from the junk food place. And then it's like, well, like maybe you have to have some boundaries and say,
exactly.
I
Yep.
need this space to actually eat right.
There are priorities, and I can't tell you how many people said, yeah, I found myself that I'm spending too much time doing A, B, C, watching the sports highlight, checking emails, checking the YouTube and everything. Where, guys, remember, you only have 1,440 minutes a day to get what you need to get done. And if you haven't done the math, about 8 of those hours of your day are basically sleeping or preparing to sleep. The other 8 of those hours are there. 2/3 of your day is spent, let's just say, working. If you just being at work 8 to 5, so to speak. Then I'm not even including how much time it takes to get dressed and get ready, drive to work, and the coming down. So you only have a few hours to get everything done, and so maybe you don't have enough time to watch 2 hours of movies every night and play
Netflix, yeah.
Xbox and do all that stuff. So it's about growing up and saying, hey, if I want to get to A, B, and C, I got to do D, E, and F. And sometimes it's just it's all about habits again. What kind of habits are you creating? And all we're trying to do is help you improve those habits to improve, body, mind, and spirit. Because I think we are all, like we said at the beginning, we are all body, mind, and spirit. And sometimes we neglect one more so than the other. And I think when you get that good little balance, you might find that you can handle the 1,440 minutes a day better.
Yeah, because the combination, because your nutrition and your physical health is kind of totally combined, but it's combined with all the other things. But you get some folks they be like, oh, they get into all these supplements, they get all the, so they have this diet that's not really balanced, and maybe it's projecting to like, oh, I want to have a six pack or I want to get this kind of body, but if it's too extreme on the outwardly, it might look like what you want,
Right.
but it's not really what you need.
Well, I don't know if it's so famous or not for myself and everything, but I'm in the middle of my seventh decade. I broke my back 40 some odd years ago playing, fractured my spine and everything. But I don't lift weights. I don't do anything extreme. I don't diet. I've never had a shot in my rear end or in my face. I just eat right and train smart. And kind of what you were saying a minute ago. Hey, the first rule of eating right is do no harm to your tummy. And if every time you're eating, if you get bloated, gassy, poopy, burpy, or sleepy, that's a sign what you're eating, your body isn't digging it so much. So you need to address that. And a lot of times, just FYI, the second part is it what you're eating or how you're eating? Are you eating all the wrong foods, the wrong combinations? Or do you just always eat on the go, in the run, in the car, which
Mhm.
is, just the absolute worst thing, not the worst thing you can do. But guys, when you eat on the go, on the run, in the car, you're literally pretty much turning your digestive system down, because you got those fight or flight hormones are kicking in
Yeah,
because
so
you're
you're not
on
giving
the
yourself your body the kind of grace it needs, where you actually need to be at the table, sitting, maybe not watching TV, but but maybe like actually eating and
I'm not going to say that because I watch TV when I eat also, but
I know,
you know,
but
I'm
I know people get so caught up. It's like I don't know if that triggers like your fight or flight if you see the wrong thing on the TV. But
maybe what you want, what you're watching, but I always tell everybody you need to learn how to sit, eat, and relax. We've
yeah,
known about that for thousands of years. I like to always say, watch any old classic movie, Braveheart, Gladiator. You don't see them on their way to work, on their horse racing down the hill with a sword in one hand and a turkey leg in the other.
no,
But
no.
that's how most of us are living our life today.
Yeah, we're living our life like, just like grabbing that quick sandwich and the coffee or the Coca-Cola in the morning and the caffeine hit. And it's like if you don't give yourself some grace,
Right.
it's like maybe you need to have the 3 meals a day, set them so you're not doing them at these weird times. At
Right.
least give your body the time and get your body on a schedule, right? Of like what is breakfast, what is lunch, what is dinner. But if
Yeah. I
you're, like,
mean,
chaotic, like, if you're all over the place, that can't I don't think that can't be helpful.
no, it's not and everything. And it's just about, just kind of laying things out and just, a little bit of foreplanning planning, planning ahead helps you. And you don't have to eat organic and all that stuff. Just kind of when it's time to eat, as I said, sit, eat, and relax. Unfortunately, there's not a pill that they can give you to make you do that. And I can't tell you how many patients I've seen over the years that say, Doc, you're telling me a lot of my problems are a result of what I eat and how I eat. But the other doctors tell me then, that has nothing to do with it. Take this medication. I go, you can decide which one you want to follow. But yeah, I don't think we were designed to be eating on the go, on the run, in the car. Now you can
No,
do it. Believe me,
you
I
can
do
do it.
it also, but there's certain tricks to do to help make sure. And I talk about that on my website. Maybe if you want to kind of have me again, I'll share more about health and
Oh, yeah.
fitness tips.
Yeah, that's interesting 'cause, yeah, people, they kinda put into these scenarios especially if you're a road warrior.
Right.
Like, I was a road warrior in my 20s, and luckily, I don't have to do that anymore. I get to work from home. So I have, like, a organic garden. I have I have a hydroponic garden in my house. I grow my own stuff. I do a lot of my own cooking. I get a lot of stuff. I live in New Hampshire. We get a lot of organic
Okay.
meat.
Okay.
But it was like a decision because I had cancer when I was 27
Okay.
and I survived it. So it
Okay.
made a connection of eating healthy is super important. And
And this is unfortunately again when I hate saying this, we'll go back, but I tell everybody, people don't realize that if you feel bloated, gassy, poopy, burpy, asleep when you eat, that's not a good sign. But unfortunately, and this is probably more towards the females out there, that is kind of like a secondary problem if they feel kind of yucky. I mean, people, in my opinion, in my little surveys I've done, people have no problem telling you if their hormones are out of whack, their blood pressure's crazy, their sinuses are goofy, but they'll never tell you how gassy and bloated and how much full of
yeah,
garbage
you kind of
they
need to know
are.
that. Yeah, and a lot of times, like if your doctor is not a nutritionist, they might just give you the pills.
Yeah.
Um, they don't really, if they haven't really studied up on like, if that's not their area, They
Oh,
might
I
not
mean,
really tell you what you really need to do there.
I can't tell you the number of patients that I've seen over the years that when I've helped them and everything, and they'll come back a week later, 2 weeks later, and they go, "Oh, doc, I need to confess that one little section in your questionnaire. It's kind of like a 4-page questionnaire I would give them." They go, I didn't answer that truthfully, all about the gas, the bloating, and the bad smell, and yada yada yada. But I've noticed that's gotten a whole lot better, you know. But that is, again, that's not something that people are going to go stop the presses for that. They'll wait till they get that really bad diagnosis, unfortunately. But guys, just FYI, if you're getting all this stuff going on in your tummy, that's usually the first domino that falls. And then there's others that are going to continue to fall. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't get motivated to move and do something until the seventh, eighth, or ninth domino starts crashing on them, and then they go, "I can't keep my head. I have a constant headache all day." So you just never know
Yeah.
what's going to motivate everybody.
But that kind of goes toward like, the pillars of your body and actually listening to your body when it tells you something. And a lot of times maybe we've been kind of programmed to like kind of suck it up, you know, got to suck it up, got to get to that meeting, got to do this, got to take the kids to this, you got to do that. And until you get to the critical mass, it's like now you can't ignore it.
Right.
And now you've actually will let it get out of hand. And it all goes back to like being present. Like you have to be present in your own life, in your own system.
And everybody's going to find it. Everybody's going to have a different starting point for what's going to motivate them. And you never know what's going to motivate. Some people are real quick to get. I mean, I've had various patients over the years that tell me, "Are you serious? I can't eat this for the next 2 weeks." And I go, I'm just trying to calm your gut down because I know you're here for this diagnosis that you were given.
Mhm.
But when I look at what's going on with you, you have all these other. We need to get the thorns out first and fix
Yeah.
your digestive system, because you eat to nourish your body, but every time you eat, you get bloated, gassy, burpy, poopy, and stuff like that. That's a sign you're not. You could be wasting more money on all that expensive protein and all those expensive vitamins if you're not absorbing those micronutrients and those macronutrients.
Mhm. Yeah, it's all about like understanding like sometimes like what you want and what you've been conditioned. Like we've been conditioned on all these products that are being given to us and we're getting hit with it all the time. And you're like you think you need it.
Right.
And people were like, "Oh, this you're kind of being you're kind of it's been set up so that your body feels it needs it. And so you have to pull yourself off of it."
No, you're exactly right, and that's what advertisers do and everything. And everybody's going to find their time when it's time to start making changes in their life. Sometime, to go back to when I was, because I created a 5-step for teens also, and what I always tell them, as a parent, you hope your kids understand some of the stuff that we're talking about. When you open your eyes, you hope that your kids open their eyes when their second decade of life, or maybe the third. It's really
Mhm.
sad that sometimes some of them don't open their eyes until their fourth and fifth decade of life,
Yeah.
that they realize, "Oh, I need to change my, this and that." But as a parent, we're trying to help, get them to understand, hey, soon enough you're going to be out of high school. You need to start figuring out what you want to do. Are you going to, join the circus, join the band, join the service, or what are you going to do when you get out
Yeah.
and everything? And it's just trying to find purpose. And
And
I'm
also
hoping
it's
Five
like
Steps can help them.
yeah, it's hard sometimes, like we talked about the distractions and the noise, and, getting into spirituality can help, like, quell some of that noise, because if you can learn how to get into, like, a spiritual framework, then you won't might not get distracted as easily if you're kinda scattered. Like, if you can't get yourself in a more directed mindset where you can actually, see something in that with instead of, like, reacting to everything,
Right, right.
start
Well,
to, like, you find that balance.
I think research shows that people that have a spiritual connection have a greater sense of happiness, right? According to statistics. And so, what I just try to tell everybody to do, or what I learned, because I've gone full circle in my spiritual walk, and for me, I used to, or I said, "Gosh, I need to get into my spirit." This was like 4 or 5 decades ago. And I'm thinking about it and I go, I could always find time to work out and get to the gym, but I can always find a way to not sit and read, all right, to work my spiritual muscles. But then I started realizing, hey, I can lift weights, I can run, I can go shoot a hoop, I can do all kinds, I can go dance, and I can do all the stuff that's good for me physically. Hey, I think the same thing applies to my spiritual muscles. There's not just one way to work your spiritual muscles. Going back to the 80s, when you're in your car, you could push that AM dial and you might hear a message out there that really touches your spirit at the time.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
when you're on your way to work, maybe a good thing about these little guys that were beating up a minute ago, that when you're sitting in traffic, when you're trying to
Yeah,
go from A to
audio
B,
books and different things you can
yeah,
listen to.
exactly. You can do stuff that's going to work those spiritual muscles. And so there's many ways you can work body, mind, and spirit, and just trying to get that balance. And, again, we're just trying to help people. Everybody uses these guys to track how they're working their physical body. What are you doing for your mind and your spirit? And 5 steps a day is just a simple way to help you, realize that, hey, there's more. We are body, mind, and spirit, and maybe there's this imbalance going on, and that could be part of what we're not as grounded as we could be to help us in our daily walk, because there's always sludge coming our way. How you
Yeah,
deal with it is how you deal with it.
yeah. Because a lot of times what happens is like, if you get onto the net, one of the bad things about the net is it kind of reinforces where you are. So if you go onto your net, it's like the algorithm's going to send you whatever you're into.
Right,
If you're into something that's keeping you into your bad loop, it's
right.
just going to keep on reinforcing it until you actually start breaking out of it. And even then, it's going to still try to figure out that, well, that's your new loop. So sometimes you're going to have to disconnect and find a way to get into spirituality, get into, you know, not on the net, like maybe in a book, maybe walking in the woods, maybe talking to somebody on the phone
Absolutely.
instead of actually doom scrolling, actually call a friend and talk to them. That's a big idea.
Yeah, yeah, there's an idea there, but yeah, that's just what if people sometimes don't realize that they're caught in this vicious cycle of life and everything, whether it's finances, maybe it be interpersonal relationship that's struggling, that has you in this vicious cycle, health reasons having this vicious cycle. There's certain steps you can take that can get you from that vicious cycle into that virtuous circle. And I'm hoping that, if you start tracking your steps, it may help you realize some of the things you need to be doing, because you can cry and moan all you want about, how come I still got 9-inch biceps? How come I am not getting it? Well, you need to get in the gym and do something, right? How come my job isn't better? Well, maybe you go to work with this attitude that no one likes to be around you for that. How come I don't have another person in my life with me? Maybe because you're not dressing that's appealing to somebody that wants to be around you, your personality, whatever. But we're just trying to help you realize that maybe you need to put some change into your life. And we'll go back to the acronym, because we talked about at the beginning, because my definition of change is creating habits and attitudes now for growth and excellence. Maybe you need to change some of your habits and some of your attitudes that will help move you from that vicious cycle into that virtuous circle.
Yeah, and that's always the hard thing because people kind of get into a bell curve of being in the middle,
Right.
and to try something different, goes against our thing to stay safe. Like the fight or flight, doing something different. You could be in something that's very negative, very toxic, but it's what you know.
Right.
To do something different is more scary. It'll trigger your fight or flight more than it actually would be good for you, but you rather stay where you are.
And if I can encourage your listener out here, guys, if you get a chance, just check out 5 steps a day, and in 2 minutes you can really track to see for yourself. Are you doing some of the things that you need? We all know what we need to be doing. Whether we want to do it or not is always a challenge, right? And
Mhm.
so you don't have to share with anybody. It's just your own little personal secret for yourself. But are you doing some of the small steps to get you there? And believe me, it's kind of like the footsteps in the sand. As you start seeing some of your footsteps being filled out, when you get that visual image, that
Mhm.
that visual hit of seeing, hey, this week I took 18 steps, or last week I took only 7.
Yeah.
There's a sense of accomplishment, and that may help you get 20 the following week, and then 22, to where you're moving in the right direction. But so if you are struggling, check it out, because it's just a simple way to help you track how you're feeding body, mind, and spirit.
It's like your life barometer, it's giving you
Yeah.
a signal, good feedback. It's super important to get that feedback. That's why we have so many people into data analytics today.
Well, yeah, this is give you feedback when you track your step. Not that this is one of those kind of watches, but
Yeah.
it's a very visual thing for the
Yeah.
audience now. But yeah, for a lot of it's just that visual thing, and if you can just see, because I'm sure being in the artist and being an artist, that there's a lot of people are more visual and kinesthetic than they are just reading everything.
Yeah.
And so
You got
when
to
they
feel
can
it.
see,
Yeah.
15, 20 footsteps for that week, where last week it was 7. There's something about that. You can see your progress, and so
Yeah.
hopefully,
You're actually registering something, you're seeing movement rather than reading a bunch of paragraphs. You might not fully understand, well, where am I?
yeah,
Versus like you see a bar chart or pie chart or bar, some kind of visual data analytical thing that tells you, hey, I'm at this percentage. I'm at that, I had this many steps and I need to stay within this range and I'm not hitting it. Then I mean, I think it's super important that you've made it, in a form that everybody is into. Like, because we all have these phones,
and
we
it's
got
not
that.
rocket. It's not rocket science. It's accountability and feedback. And to use a business term, I like to say, most people, businesses, what do they do? They get data. What do they say on Shark Tank? Show me the numbers.
Yeah,
So
what's the
they
numbers?
track sales, they track profit, they track
Profit
revenue.
loss. Yeah, your
Well,
profit loss.
I like to say, I'm the president of MMI, me, myself, and I. And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to get data on, am I doing something for my body? Am I doing something for my mind? Am I doing something for my spirit? Am I moving? Am I doing anything at all? Or am I just really completely neglecting it? And so hopefully 5 steps today can be just a simple tool to help you, get you started, get you moving in that right direction.
We're gonna ask people again to scan the QR code. That'll bring them right to the 5stepsaday.com website. So if you take your phone or any device that you have the camera on, you just take your shot of that. It will allow you to just go right to the website. So if people go right to your website, that's how they get access to what we've been talking about today, right?
Right.
Cool. So we want people to, scan that. And if you don't feel comfortable doing the QR code within the podcast description, we've been on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. Those hyperlinks to your Instagram and to your website are all clickable. So you can go on to LinkedIn or YouTube and click on those links. They are fully clickable, and you'll be able to go right to the website. But I want to thank you again for being here today and giving people this opportunity to take out the app that you've built and, get into what you're doing. I think it's
Hey,
really
Phantom, thank you so much. Really enjoyed chatting with you and everything. We didn't get into the artist work.
well, that's okay. Thank you very much for being here.
Hey, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.